military was engaged in setting up a combat command to engage in what they refer to as the detection and mitigation of any threat posed by UAPs. It was clear that this was to distinguish the UFO phenomenon from any other types of airborne vehicles.
My name is Danny Sheehan. I'm a constitutional litigator who's worked some of the most important cases in modern American history. From Pentagon Papers, the Watergate scandal, to Iran-Contra. My legal career has led me now to this pivotal moment. As our human family confronts the implications of the existence here on our planet of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional non-human species. I will be your guide as we dive into the profound philosophical, theological, and public policy questions pertaining to the UFO phenomenon, alien life, and the citizen movement for disclosure. This is the Full Disclosure Podcast, coming to you from the New Paradigm Institute on SpectraVision Radio.
The war against Iran is still now going on into its 10th week. The President of the United States has now declared that he does not need to give any official notification to Congress about his intents with regard to this war, that he has no need to have any authority from them, even though the War Powers Act explicitly mandates that the president is required to notify Congress about his actions, and that unless they have given him affirmative permission to continue those operations after a 60-day period, or he has specifically asked Congress for an additional 30 days to continue these covert operations or military operations, he has to cease and desist from them. He has defied Congress and stated he has no intention of asking for any permission to continue these operations. He has taken the position that because he has ordered a unilateral ceasefire during this process, but is still engaged in the active directing of U.S. military forces to seize Iranian ships in the Straits of Hormuz and is continuing other warlike activities with them, that he has no need to secure any kind of consent from Congress. There's this escalating military operation going on in Lebanon between Israel and the Hezbollah, in which major missiles are being exchanged back and forth from Israel into southern Lebanon and from Lebanon into Israel. And the United States is engaged in a military blockade in the Straits of Hormuz. As we gather here for this episode of our Full Disclosure Podcast, because of these activities, the global oil supply has been reduced by some 20% right now. The United Arab Emirates have withdrawn from the pact they have with other nations to control the output of oil. Now, there's a major destabilization of the entire energy industry in the world, and there are 60 nations have gathered in Colombia this past week to try to move off any kind of dependence upon petroleum or other fossil fuels for the source of their energy. The missiles that are being sent by Israel into Lebanon, and the defense missiles that are being paid for by the United States and provided to Israel, trying to shoot down some of the missiles coming in from Lebanon and Hezbollah, that these cost between $1 and $3 million a piece, these anti-missile missiles, and the missiles from the Hezbollah probably cost around $300. So there's this depleting of the military assets of Israel and the United States going on, which is causing our American stock market to go sky high because the American defense industry realizes that they're going to have contracts to have to replace all of these military assets to Israel and the United States. That's all going on the international and national level. The stock market is hitting all-time highs, while the president's standing is plummeting. He's now down to approximately 34% of the people in the country that support any of his policies. There's 62% of all the people are opposing his policies. Also, on a home front, the United States Supreme Court this week has issued an opinion in Louisiana versus Calais, in which the six-person majority of the Supreme Court has ruled that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act does not authorize the federal government to direct states to set up their congressional districts in such a way as to allow African Americans to have an adequate number of representatives equal to their population in the state. And that's been struck down by a majority of the Supreme Court now. And this has triggered a major escalation on the part of the states, the 26 states that have Republican-controlled state legislatures, to start issuing orders to redistrict their entire state. And the Democratic Party is responding in kind, looking to the 24 states that they have Democratic control over the state legislatures to redistrict those states. This is totally destabilizing the maps, the political maps, for the upcoming 2026 congressional and Senate elections. So this is sort of the condition that's obtaining on a global level and on a national level right now. There's a lot of mayhem reigning right now. With regard to the UFO stories, here in the midst of all of the discussion that's going on now about the president 4 separate times now, President Trump having announced publicly that he was in the process of trying to prepare to publicly release information about UFOs and the existence of some extraterrestrial civilization, that he has not done so yet. But in that context, the big event that happened this week was the very quiet public release of a 2.5-year-old document that was issued by the Defense Department just immediately before the passage of the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act that was passed back in December of 2023. This was a major event that has taken place, and it's gone virtually unnoticed by all of the major news media, and it was actually basically unnoticed even by Congress. This is the document here that was released on May 1st. It was released pursuant to a Freedom of Information Act demand issued by John Greenwald, the founder of the Black Vault. And he submitted this Freedom of Information Act demand a long time ago, but they decided just all of a sudden on May 1st that this was going to be provided with full knowledge that Greenwald, of course, would make it public. So this is a public release of this particular document. And the reason that it's so important is because this document is a December 7th action order issued by the Defense Department to the AARO office, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, that was established pursuant to a statute passed by Congress to demand that there be a place established by the Defense Department and the Director of National Intelligence to provide a place for whistleblowers to go, protected against any retaliation, to reveal to the AARO office information about the allegations that were being made in public hearings before Congress, indicating that, in fact, stating that our United States executive branch was in possession of one or more non-human origin extraterrestrial spaceships, and the occupants, the bodies of the occupants that had been tested and proven to be non-human. that this Aero office was supposed to be an office that was going to accept the testimony of whistleblowers to tell Congress about this ongoing program. What this order does is immediately before the law was passed in December of 2023, this December 7th order was issued ordering Aero, this congressionally mandated office, to set up an action office. It's called a UAP Space Tiger Team. This was a team to be staffed by the J3s and J5s of the Spacecom, U.S. Spacecom Command. That's a military command, and Northcom, the North Military Command of the United States Defense Department. And that these action officers who are responsible for coordinating combat operations were to be assigned to the Aero office as the members of this new Tiger team. Now, this is an extraordinary step that was taken by the Defense Department on the very eve of being ordered to provide a procedure for ensuring timely and consistent reporting to Congress about the UAP phenomenon. And this was obviously deemed to be some form of notice to the Congress that the United States military was engaged in setting up a combat command to engage in what they refer to as the detection and mitigation of any threat posed by UAPs. It was clear that this was to distinguish the UFO phenomenon from any other types of airborne vehicles, that this was a UFO-targeted military action team that was to be set up inside Aero. Now, this is an extraordinary development in two ways. One, the actual issuing of this order to set up such a military-oriented combat unit against UFOs, and to do so with no authorization from Congress at all to engage in this type of war-type activity against these craft. And secondly, the fact that this document would be released to the public by the Defense Department on May 1st of this year, right amidst all of this discussion going on about pressure being put on President Trump to publicly release all of the documents having to do with UFOs and any ET or non-human intelligence that is associated with the UFO phenomenon. These are two very major events that have taken place here. Not only the revelation of this document, but the issuance of this document, this order to begin with. What does this actually mean? And what it means, I think, is that the Congress of the United States is being drawn in unknowingly into somehow having received notice from the Defense Department that they are going to be undertaking unilateral military action against UFOs, and that they're purporting to have, quote, notified Congress about this simply by giving this directive to the Aero office, because the Aero office was set up by Congress to be the monitor, to have people come in and report information to the Aero office so that it could thereafter notify Congress about this information. But this is actually making Aero an action office of the United States military. This is an extraordinary development right now. I've been in conversation with people in the United States Congress now and in the task force to get them to issue subpoenas to the people that have been involved in making these decisions for the Defense Department, and getting a further briefing on what the import of this action on their part has been. This is part of an ongoing challenge that we have, is to have representatives in our United States Congress, in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate, or who are going to have the courage to confront the Defense Department now in the executive branch as it is attempting to draw under the umbrella of the United States military in Defense Department the activities that are underway regarding the UFO phenomenon. Up until comparatively recently, as far as anyone knew, all of those activities were being undertaken in complete secret. But now they are engaging in a process of shuffling information in this kind of extremely secretive way to AARO to have this represent some type of a notification to Congress that they were doing this. But this is an attempt to draw the United States constitutional elements of our government, the Defense Department, the United States Air Force, now the U.S. Space Force, all into official roles in dealing with UFOs, but doing so as combat command in a military context. There is no involvement here of the State Department to deal with the UFO beings diplomatically. There's no indication of any kind of involvement on the part of Congress in reviewing the policies that are going to be being adopted toward the occupants of the UFOs. We've gotten past this stage now of actually revealing to Congress that the UFO phenomenon is real. But now they've moved into the stage of trying to engage the UFOs militarily and implicate Congress in somehow having given the okay for this to go forward, because they've been notified as of 2.5 years ago that this activity was being initiated. So this is an extraordinarily important development. We are going to be developing a coordinated response to this through the New Paradigm Institute. We want you to join the Citizens for Disclosure in your state and in your congressional district so that you can be on the communication line about how to respond to this. Please do this right away. This is an extraordinarily important event that has taken place here. This does not substitute for the demand that is outstanding to have you contact every single candidate for public office for the House or Senate coming up here in 2026, and to demand that they sign the pledge card that if they are elected, that they will in fact support every step necessary to obtain full disclosure of all of the UFO information and all about this extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional non-human intelligence that is responsible for the UFO phenomenon. This has been communicated to you on our website before. This is an action that is presently underway, so please contact us at newparadigminstitute.org and become part of this major movement. This is Dan Sheehan. I'm coming to you as the Full Disclosure Podcast over SpectraVision Radio.
To join the citizen movement for disclosure, visit newparadigminstitute.org/take action.